Hi, this is Dr. Still again, and I wanted to go over the therapeutic communication techniques with you, and recognizing that you're going to need to be familiar with these different communication techniques when you're doing your video for your final. When you are counseling with somebody, you have to help them to explore their problem. And so there are certain techniques that you can learn to do that will keep them so that they are being asked certain questions, or you're giving them certain indications of how they need to continue. It expresses to them that you're paying attention, that you're keeping track of what they're saying, that you're interested, that you understand, or perhaps you're confused. What you want to try to elicit from them is how they're feeling, what they're thinking. But in general, these techniques help you to explore what is the situation they came in for. They need to be able to tell you about it. It's something that's going on with them, so they're fully informed. But they need a way where they are given permission to tell the story, the parts of the story that are important, the parts of the story that maybe they know but you're still trying to figure it out. And so let's review these techniques so that you understand what they are and what they actually look like. So the first technique is using silence. And what this means is, as a novice counselor, oftentimes someone will be telling you a story and you will get to the point where you're kind of stuck and you're thinking, I don't know what to say next. Or they are getting emotional and perhaps weepy or crying, and you're going, oh no, what am I supposed to do now? But actually, it's in that situation when they are expressing emotions that you want to use silence the most. It's most effective then. You want them to have their emotions. You want them to feel those emotions. You want them to stay with those emotions. Another time that you could use silence is if you ask them a question, give them the opportunity to think about what the answer might be. Maybe they don't have a ready answer. Maybe it's something they haven't thought about, and they need a little bit of time in order to process the question so that they can answer it. Probably one of the mistakes that novice counselors make the most is they'll ask a question and they don't get a ready response, and so then they ask another one. And because you're going to be nervous if you don't have any experience with counseling, I just want to encourage you to avoid making those mistakes with silence. So the next technique is called accepting, and very, very important. What the person wants more than anything else from you is that they feel understood. And so accepting, obviously, the opposite of that would be not accepting, or even a sense of judgment. That they're going to be afraid to tell you something because they're going to be afraid of what are you going to think about them. And that's where we are in our human nature. We're all afraid of that. And so a counselor really needs to come across as, you know what, no matter what you say to me, I'm going to accept that as part of who you are. I had a recent situation with a woman that had an affair while she was married. She's divorced from that particular man and she's remarried. And, her ex-husband she's never told her ex-husband about that affair that happened, 5 years ago. And as I'm listening to her, I have to make sure that, she knows that I'm accepting what she did. I'm not putting any value judgment on it, whether it was right or wrong. She already knows it was wrong. She already feels convicted by the Holy Spirit. And I need to then find out what she wants to do with that conviction. People are going to shut down on you if they don't feel accepted. So you can do that non-verbally by just kind of maintaining eye contact, as well as nodding, encouraging them to continue the story. You know, worst case scenarios, you have some kind of look on your face that shows disgust or shows big surprise, or, you know, gives them a nonverbal message that you can't handle what they're trying to say to you. And then the next communication technique is called normalizing, and normalizing is extremely important. Well, if you look at the root word, it's normal. So what people go through, the emotions that they have, what they do in the midst of the situations that they're trying to deal with, normalizing means, you know what, anybody else in your situation probably would have done the very same thing. You know, they've had a breakup, or, you know, they've been separated from their spouse, or the kids have done something that, you know, is horrendous, or the kids are in, you know, huge distress, and they're speaking about their overwhelming emotions, their overwhelming despair. And normalizing is saying, you know what, the way that you feel is normal. You should feel the way that you feel. You don't have to try to not feel those feelings. You don't have to think that something's wrong with you because you feel those feelings. It's normal. And that gives them a sense of relief. It gives them a sense that they are okay and that they can have those emotions, or maybe even the thoughts that they're having. You know, if they've been betrayed and they're having really negative, evil thoughts about the person who betrayed them, you can tell them, you know what, that is a normal response. It's not the response you want to have for the rest of your life, but for right now, I certainly do understand where you're at and how you got to where you're at. How would you like to help me? How would you like me to help you with what you're feeling? Summarizing, another important communication technique. Summarizing is when you take what they've said to you in small bites. In other words, you don't let someone go on for 30 minutes and then say, oh, okay, let me see if I can summarize. You know, they're telling you the story, and maybe after about 5 or 10 minutes, you can say, okay, let me see if I understand what you're saying. And then you summarize what you've heard them say. You say it back to them, and you say, did I get it right? And then they can either nod yes, or they can say, well, no, I really meant this or that, the other. So summarizing is something that's good to do, you know, like I mentioned, you know, every 10 minutes or so. And then always at the end, kind of wrap it up with a bow when you say, okay, we have talked about this situation. You have decided you want this goal. You're going to do this, this, and this in order to accomplish your goal. And then we will meet again and see and evaluate whether or not you were able to accomplish that goal. That's another thing that you can do at the very end of counseling with somebody that would look like summarizing. And then the next communication technique is giving broad openings. And this is what you're going to do at the very beginning. You want to give them a sentence that lets them know, okay, we're going to talk about whatever it is that you want to talk about. I'm not setting the agenda. You're the one who's setting the agenda. So what would you like to talk about today is a really good broad opening. Tell me what brought you here today. You know, basically, you know, I'm here to listen to you and talk about anything that you want to talk about. All good broad openings. Okay, the next communication technique is offering general leads. And this is just, you know, one of those things that, you know, you have someone who wants to tell their story, and it may take them 15, 20 minutes to tell their story. And so you're not sitting there in stumped silence. You're kind of giving them the indication, you know what, I'm with you, continue talking. So it's things like, I see, yeah, you know, just anything that you're interjecting, you're not interrupting, but you're letting them know, I'm with you, I'm here, I'm interested, tell me more. And then the next communication technique is placing the event in time or sequence. And as they are telling the story and as you're listening to it, they may start talking about something that you don't know when it happened. You're going, well, was that recent or was it from the past? Or they are, kind of jumping around and you want to just say, okay, well, did this happen before what you're talking about or did it happen after what you're talking about? It helps you to more fully understand the story because they know the situation. It's all in their mind, but oftentimes they don't talk about it sequentially, and so you might be confused. And this is actually, a technique that two things can happen. You can make sure that you're not confused, and it may be that they're contradicting each other. And as you're asking and probing for them to place it in time or sequence, that they realize the inconsistency, which is really what you want to happen in the counseling session, is that they have certain shifts in their thinking, realizations that they didn't have before they came to see you. And then the next communication technique is called making observations. And making observations is something that you're going to do in terms of what you see that may be they're verbal or they're nonverbal. Oftentimes you'll do it in that you are going to be observing their emotion and you're going to be asking them, let's say that they're tapping their leg or their foot. They're tapping their foot and they're talking about something that may be difficult for them to talk about, and you make the observation, you seem really anxious right now. And they may not have even noticed it. They may not even know that it's going on. And what it does is it helps them to kind of just recognize the emotions that they're having. And that, what they're saying is very important to them. And that, it may bring them to the place where they're getting in touch with those emotions. And they need to get in touch with those emotions in order for them to recognize that the emotions may be driving them and they may not want that to actually happen. Or it may be that they're having a lot of anger, and by recognizing their emotions or recognizing their frustrations, you can help them to get to those primary emotions which they're not even aware of, like sadness, loneliness, fears, fear of abandonment, that type of thing. And then the next technique is called probing. And probing is basically when you're trying to get more information from them. For example, the best one I can think of is, tell me more about the situation, a specific situation that they may have alluded to that you think is important for you to know in order to help them to move forward. But you want to use open-ended questions. A closed-ended question is, can you tell me? Because can you tell me is going to end up with, yeah, I can tell you. Although that's not what they end up doing. But it's the how, the when, the where. You do want to avoid using why questions. It's the who. Any of those, any sentence, any question that begins with any of those things I just mentioned are going to be open-ended questions. So it's to explore more fully what they're talking about. Encouraging comparisons. This is helping you and them to begin to recognize patterns that you'll see that within their life. People end up, as I mentioned, people have certain rules that they live by, and those rules create patterns. So they're going to find themselves responding similarly over and over and over again. And so it's helpful if you can bring that to their attention.